Hi, this is Graphically Alex coming at you with all things fat related. If that's something that interests you, please subscribe. I love to have you. And today I want to react to this take. This is not like me calling somebody out or hating on somebody or anything like that. This is more of like a let's do this a little bit better. And I want to talk about why. And I want to talk about what happens when the zombie horde tries to pull you back in. For those of you guys that are new to the channel, I have a video in my description called The State of War of Anti-Fat Acceptance, where I talk about how people within E fall by the letter D organize and attack people outside of it. And I compare it a lot to The Last of Us zombies. So if I say things like zombie horde, that's what I'm talking about. The zombie horde came after this woman. And I want to show what she did. And I want to describe why I don't think you should do what she did. So let's go ahead. I'm going to just play the whole thing. And then we'll break it down piece by piece.
So I got a comment on one of my posts basically saying the amount of fat people that lose weight and then immediately forget what it's like to be fat is insane. Just because I said that people should stop making excuses for themselves. I would just like to clarify, I've been overweight my entire life until now. I will never forget what it's like. I was 18 and went on a date with a guy to the fair, and I was asked to get off the ride because I was so fat they couldn't lock the ride around me. Or when I was 20 and I was talking to a guy that I really liked, and he told me, I don't want to hang out with you in public because I don't want to be seen with a fat chick. Or how about in 8th grade when I came home from a sleepover and literally wanted to cut my stomach off my body because all the girls were swapping clothes and I couldn't fit in anything. So, no, I will never forget what that's like. And that's why I post about my weight loss and why I tell other people to stop making excuses, because you don't have to live like that forever. You don't have to feel like that forever. Sorry. No matter where you are in life, if you're in your 40s, 30s, it is never too late to better yourself and to lose weight and to get healthy, and so that you can move your body as you want and so that you don't hate yourself every day when you look in the mirror. That's why I post this stuff, to let people know they are not alone and that they can do it too. So I got a comment.
So you can see she's a firefly. However, we need to fight this better. We need to fight this stronger. I'm sure that her take did resonate with a lot of people, but it also can resonate with zombies. So the issue that I have with this is, I don't know, she may not be aware, but the horde is trying to call her back. That's what they're trying to do. They want her to cry. They want her to feel this way. Now, when we are fighting this, especially publicly, so especially when we're talking within a message, this is seen as weakness. And a lot of people, they don't want to admit that. They don't like that, right? Like, it doesn't sound pretty and nice in American culture. Americans are very Pollyanna about a lot of things, and they just feel like we should just be able to share our feelings and have butterflies and rainbows all the time. But that doesn't really work within this. So what they're trying to do when they attack you is they're trying to get you to reinforce them. And she did. So she flopped. Somebody who has the issue that watches this video, they will go away from it thinking that's the only reason why she lost, because she wasn't treated well. I'm right. I'm stronger than her then, if I stay in it. People will think that doesn't make any sense. That's crazy. That's the point. It's a zombie. And then they're soothed by her saying this. They're soothed by, oh, we got her to cry. Yes. I want her to feel pain. Yes. And they won't say that. They will not admit that out loud, but they're jealous and they want her to be in pain. So they want her to show pain. And that's what they do. So essentially, she lost in this interaction with the horde. They won. It doesn't mean that they win the whole war or whatever, but this is not a helpful message, and I will break it down piece by piece.
Comment on one of my posts basically saying the amount of fat people that lose weight and then immediately forget what it's like to be fat is insane.
So it's an attack of identity. So within the toxic ritualistic, within E followed by the letter D, it is important to understand that yes, within BINGE, you identify with fatness. Fatness is a part of your identity. It is heavily encouraged. And if you are really identifying with it, you are at least TR adjacent. You're getting into it. You're starting to shift. You're probably level 1 zombie. If you identify with being fat, you are probably like a little bit, and I don't mean like externally. So I don't mean like describing yourself. Like if you are fat and you just say you are, but I mean identifying with it to the point where you feel like you have to defend it. If somebody says, the people who forget what it's like to be fat, oh my gosh, right after they're not. If you feel like you have to defend that, that's too internalized. You're still internalizing it too much. Last year, I talked about this energy as mid-sized princess energy a lot. I don't think that she is necessarily exhibiting that. I think that she's thinking that she should be relatable. I think relatability towards zombies is not necessarily needed. I think maybe describing certain things, talking about it more coldly, more logically is more helpful, in my opinion. It doesn't mean that you can't ever have a moment or go through something. If she was just having a moment, I wouldn't say she capitulated to anything, but she is making this directly in response to a zombie horde comment, which is bad. And she stated it, which is also bad because it encourages it further. So I hope I'm making sense. This is not like me hating on her at all. This is, I want us to do better than this. This is not going to work.
Just because I said that people should stop making excuses
She wasn't reinforcing
for themselves.
So I wish that she knew they want reinforcement from you, and you gave it to them. You immediately caved when you made this video. So in contrast, when they want reinforcement from me, I tell them, hell no, it's not going to happen. I'm not going to reinforce you. But it's very tempting. American culture loves to reinforce. It's one of the most beautiful things about American culture is we really do lift each other up. We really do support each other a lot more than other cultures. I was thinking we didn't that much, but in reality, if you compare American culture towards a lot of other cultures and countries, we are the most supportive of each other here, which I know is weird to say, and people are like, what? It just goes to show that people don't really do that in other countries as much. It doesn't mean that everybody's supportive all the time, but when you look at it, when people believe in something or they want to accomplish something, people in America, we greatly encourage that. We value ambition a lot as Americans. And that is a beautiful thing. But when it comes to E followed by the letter D, it is very negative. You never want to encourage that. You never want to validate that. You never want to say, you're right for feeling this way. Horrible. That's cruel. It's actually cruel to do to somebody. So it is a uniquely American issue that is very difficult to deal with living here. It's also in part why it's so bad here, because we always want to encourage everybody all the time, or we really value optimism and positivity. But this isn't something you can be positive about. This is gross. This is bad. This is extremely caustic and negative and terrible. And they take advantage. Give them an inch, they take a mile every time. And it's something that really clashes here. It really does. And it's partly why it's so bad, because we don't want to say you're wrong for feeling that way. It's like so sacrosanct in America to say that. You don't really want to say that, to the point where people who do say things like that in this country, they feel the need to go so harsh because it's such a radical thing to say that it's almost like you have to like completely be a total asshole if you're not going to be that way, or you capitulate all the time. And it's like, but it's because it's so heavily encouraged in our culture to be supportive. So if you're not, then it's like you have to be totally nasty and horrible all the time. When it comes to this issue, you have to be very gray. Gray thinking is not encouraged at all, like online. So there's just so many layers to this of why it's so bad. But I'm just trying to explain why you have to talk about it differently than this.
I would just like to clarify, I've been overweight my entire life.
That's fine. See, emotional expression, everything, stating a fact, I would totally be supportive of that. I think that's a good strategy. They don't like reality. So if you state reality, that's what they need to hear.
Until now. I will never forget what it's like.
Okay.
I was 18 and
So this is where it starts to get emotional already. I will never forget what it's like. Should be more calm. I'm not going to forget what it's like because I was fat most of my life. So this is what I would say. So when you say things like that, do you think that I just have amnesia? Do you have that bad of a memory? Could you forget 20 plus years? 25 years? You see, that's a sassy way to respond. Or you could be like, I was big my whole life, but I've made peace with it. I see it just as a phase of my life, and that phase is over because weight is mutable. Weight changes. It's not a part of who I am. It never was. Not really. I may have believed that at one point, but it was never true. And it's not true for you either. You see? It's not encouraging at all. It's not reinforcing. It'd probably piss a lot of people off, but you can still acknowledge facts, and you can state this calmly too, because you have to remember zombies see your emotional reactions. Now, sometimes they are wrong and they think like aggression is like deeply bothered. It's not. So with zombies, they only respond to aggression. And so when you fight with them and you are like aggressive in the sense of like activistically aggressive, or like, you're so stupid or something like that, when you kind of like yell back or something like that, that is something that they need, especially if they're very hostile, because they're testing you. So when you do that, then they'll be like, oh my gosh, you're so freaked out. And it's like, okay, toddler, that's the kind of response you have to have, because it's very tough. That's like, you're strong. You're not bothered by what they say, because they go into that kind of like gaslighting. Oh my gosh, you're so freaked out. And it's like, but look at you. You're way more freaked out. And you could just be like, you're the one out of control. I'm fine. You see, that's hard for people to deal with. They don't want to do that. It's a lot of work. But when you're dealing with hostile zombies, that's often what it takes. You have to respond aggressively often. You have to be either extremely aggressive, or I don't know about extremely, but you have to be either aggressive, although in control, or you have to be extremely cold and flat. I think either one of them would work. She's not doing either one, which is why I'm here.
and went on a date with a guy to the fair, and I was asked to get off the ride because I was so fat they couldn't lock the ride around me.
She's focusing on social issues. So they're not forcing her. They're convincing her to dwell and remember the past. They're trying to drag her back, and she's letting them. So, how many memories does she have that are that bad? Probably not that many. Probably not. But when you're in the TR, you hyperfixate on certain things that happened and you let out, like you leave out every other day. I had a few moments in California where I was fat shamed, but it was over the course of a decade. I still remember them, but I don't even care to think about it, to describe it, because it's irrelevant to my life. Because most of the time I wasn't. Even deep in the 2000s, there were plenty of conversations about my weight. There were plenty of times where I was anxious about it. But I can't tell you a specific one because I don't dwell on it anymore. I moved on. You know, quite frankly, I've been through worse things. And I have, you know, I've been through much worse than my body being talked about. And that's the perspective shift, you see? You see how what I'm saying, it's not reinforcing at all. It's happened, but I moved on. You're not ever supposed to be able to move on, but I did. Well, I don't like that. I don't care. You're not getting reinforcement from me, period. You see? I'm telling you.
When I was 20 and I was talking to a guy that I really liked, and he told me, I don't want to hang out with you in public because I don't want to be seen with a fat chick. Or how about in 8th grade when I came home from a sleepover and literally wanted to cut my stomach off my body because all the girls were
starting to cry, not in control, flopping hard. And I don't know if she's doing it because she doesn't want to be attacked, but it doesn't matter. You need to be strong. Fireflies need to be strong. Fireflies need to get it together, you know? I don't know her whole story. I don't know everything about her. I'm just looking at this one video. This video is a flop. So I'm not going to say she is in general, but this video is. It's a flop. But when she's talking about anybody can do this and stuff, that's very Firefly coded. So I'm still considering her like on my side in this. But this is not going well. Starting to cry. They're getting you to say the talking points for them. That's what's happening right now. So now they're getting you to reinforce other people. That's what's now happening. They're tricking you. So although you said stop making excuses, that's not reinforcing. Now you're reinforcing. Because you have to remember, the TR is not just about being fat. There's also a reductive part of it. There's also reductive issues within it. So it's still encouraging it either way, which is all they care about. So if I got on here and I talked about how awful it is to be fat, how it was the worst thing ever, and blah, 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 the zombies would love me. If I talk about thin privilege and I talk about it as the most incredible thing in my entire life and everything is amazing now and it's such a stark contrast and all this crap, if I went down that path, the zombies would love it. What did I say instead? Being fat was unhealthy. Being fat affected my mental health. Being fat affects your hormones, affected my hormones. It affected my quality of life, my quality of sleep. It affected how I could relate to other people. It caused me to lose my empathy. As I developed very deep hypothyroidism, I was incredibly anxious all the time due to physical health issues tied to my obesity, which did undermine my relationships and stability in platonic, familial, romantic relationships. So it made it difficult to hold down a job as well, because it was so severe. See? Do you see that? Whoa, 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 whoa. They don't want to hear that. They want to hear about how it's society's fault. Society didn't help me. Society is built in a sense to encourage the issue in America. I've talked about that. Again, the state of war, of anti-fat acceptance. There's a link in the description. I talk about that. I didn't receive help for my issue. My issue flew so far under the radar, even though it was extremely obvious. And there's no explanation. There was no help for me as a teenager. Oh, yeah. They don't want to hear that because they don't want it to end. You have to keep that in mind. Look at how many ways I can talk about it and not reinforce it. Well, I don't want to have to stop. Of course you don't. Of course you don't. So that's why you don't want to hear this. And then if I talk about thin privilege as, it's like Hilary Duff's new album, it's Thin Privilege or something. I was lamenting about that today on the phone with somebody. I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, if I downsized only for the social benefit, it's literally like 10%. And I was like, I would have given up a long time ago if that was all I cared about, because it ain't shit. And then, of course, I said, but if I talk about it physically, emotionally, psychologically, everything, practically, financially, everything, oh my God, 100% difference. 100%. So worth it. 1,000% worth it. Socially, 10%. Still introverted. Still made certain issues worse. You know, I think in a lot of ways I don't know how to say that. I'm prickly. I've talked about it. I'm a prickly INFJ. You know, I like to say that. That's how I am. So as I've looked better or become thin or whatever, I'm more prickly. I'm less approachable even. So that puts even more pressure on me socially, because then I have to kind of contend with it in a way, which is not always natural or intuitive for an introverted person. And I just try to tell you guys that who are also introverted, because I'm one of the few proud to be introverted types. I am proud of it. I do not have any shame about being introverted, but I'm one of the few that speaks publicly about it openly all the time like this. And so I want you guys to know, I know that that's kind of like a wing of my activism that's not covered that well. So I try to talk about that. You will still be shy. Do not base it on this, like, I'm going to be so social butterfly after. You probably won't. And hence thin or something. So just be aware, you know. Becoming thin, it makes you more of who you are. If you're prickly, you become more prickly. If you're charming, you become more charming. If you're mean, you become meaner. It makes you more of you. And a lot of people don't like that in the TR. They don't want to be themselves. But to that I say, I don't give a fuck if you don't want to be yourself. You'd rather be a zombie. That's crazy. Like, you're much better than a zombie. So, bye. I may be prickly. I may be elusive. I may be like a living ghost sometimes. Complicated. Simply complicated. I'm just kidding. Mysterious. Elusive, etc. What's the word? I can't think of it. My brain just died. I may be all those things, and I'm even more of those things now. You see? But if you're charming, funny, happy, go lucky, optimistic, you're going to be more of those things. And the thing is, it's beautiful that we're all different. That's a beautiful thing to me. So if there's a thin privilege, it's just that it's like you turn up the volume on your identity. And so You can attune easier to people that like you. And that's it. And people that hate you, they hate you more. But when I say that, when I say thin privilege is thin or something, that pisses off a lot of people, a lot of zombies too, because they want to believe that what they're doing is justified, or they want to believe that they are a victim, or they want to believe these things, and it's just not true. It's not.
We're swapping clothes and I couldn't fit in anything. So, no, I will never forget what that's like. And
So within the TR, we are taught that we bond through body hatred, or we are taught that we bond through this type of pain, which is horrible. That's zombie bonding. Throw it in the trash immediately. I will never do that with anybody.
And that's why I post about my weight loss and why I tell other people to stop making
That's
excuses,
fine.
because you don't have to live like that forever.
That's great. Love that message.
You don't have to feel like that forever.
That's great. I think emotion works with that too. So I'm not mad at her for being emotional about this part. This is good. Love this.
Sorry. No matter where you are in life, if you're in your 40s, 30s, it is
Love this
never
message.
too late to better yourself and to lose weight and to get healthy, and so that you can move your body as you want, and so that you don't hate yourself every day when you look in the mirror.
I love this message. I will just tie it also to the DIS order. You don't just hate yourself because you're big. You hate yourself because of the DIS order. So you got to get out of that, babes. Because if you don't, then you'll still hate yourself, even if you're thinner. So you got to break the toxic ritualistic. You got to throw it in the trash. You got to let go of the fat acceptance rhetoric and all that crap. And you can stop hating yourself right now. So.
That's why I post this stuff, to let people know they are not alone and that they can do it too.
Yeah. So I think that that's good. That was very Firefly at the end. I like that. Obviously, I am one. So again, it's not like super harsh call out, etc. This is just, I'm trying to make this better. I want you guys as my audience to be aware that they will try to call you back. They will try to call you home. Don't go. It's not your home. It's trash. It's gone. So you have to have that mindset, basically. That's my opinion. And yeah, I think that's all I want to talk about today. It's going to be a little shorter. I don't know why I went British either. It's going to be a little shorter today. It's going to be a little shorter. I'm taking it right back to Cali. Forget that. A little shorter today. Because I'm going to watch a horror movie and I'm a little tired. This is my last day of my deepest death. I'm so excited to go up in Cal's tomorrow. So I'm happy about that. And this cut is wrapping up. Thank God. So it'll help my creativity too. So more energy, more creativity, right? Right? Why? Why? Why reductive zombies? Because we don't stay in a death forever. Because that's not a way to live. Slap you all. But anyways, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.